Okay, now the part 2 of this video, we're going to now click on the next worksheet, which is Satisfaction Survey. Once we're in this worksheet, we're going to go ahead and name a range again so we can use it in our function. So if you start selecting from in row 4, go from column A to H, and we're going to go down to our last row of data, which is 40. Once you have that range selected, go up to your name box, and up here we're going to type the word survey. When you're done typing, make sure you press enter. And I'm just going to go ahead and go to my name manager, my formulas tab, name manager, and I just want to make sure that it's there and it's spelled correctly. And if it's not, you can always go in and highlight and select edit and go ahead and update it to make sure it has the correct spelling. Okay, so now I'm going to select OK and close it out. Now we're going to go ahead and use a d-average function. Now what this is, the d-average, it's a function, and reading right here, averages all the numbers in a column in a list or database based on a given criteria. So let me go ahead and explain that to you. Okay, after you're done naming your range, we're going to now switch over to this average ratings worksheet. But remember, we're going to go ahead and start grabbing average numbers based on criteria, but it's going to come from the database here on the satisfaction survey. Now, this database, again, it mentions that it's going to go to a selected range or a database right here. Now you can see comfort, it's going to go to this particular column, comfort, and then it's going to have a criteria. Now the criteria, you can always include it on this worksheet, or you can make a separate worksheet. So just make sure that the first thing in your set of instructions, it's very confusing. So I'm just going to tell you, before you move forward, just go in here and let's type out all of our criteria. So I went ahead and typed them out. Just make sure that in B2, you're typing in RUG, asterisk, down here, next one, so forth and so on. Now these represent, going over here, RUG, this would be this category and any character that follows after that. This is a COM, this is for our LAZ, this is our SER, and then GLI. So that's what we're typing here. We're saying these first 3 characters and anything that follows after that. Okay, so let's go over and let's start building this, and I'll explain this to you. So you want to go and start here in C5, and we're going to type equals and then D average. I'm going to double click on it. Now we're going to go ahead and type that name range so it knows what database to go to. So we're going to type the word survey. Here it is. I'm going to double click on it. So that's my database. Now my field, where does it go? Well, we're telling it that we're going to go to look for the field, which is a column name. We want it to look for the characters, so text characters. So make sure you have your quotation marks and just type the word comfort correctly, comma, and then the last one would be your criteria. Now the criteria is here on this worksheet. Now you can use a click and point and click method, but if you do, you can't click back on this worksheet. You have to press enter from this worksheet. Or you can go ahead and type it in. If you're typing it in, you would just type out the worksheet name, which is criteria, and then you need an exclamation point. And the first criteria was located from B1 colon to B2. And I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and just end the parenthesis and press enter, and you can see what came back. Now what's actually happening, it's going over to this database and it's saying, okay, well, here's the criteria. It must meet this criteria. So it's going to ignore everything else. And it knows to go over here to this comfort. And then once it goes over, so this stuff meets the criteria, and it's going to go over to these numbers and it's going to average them out, which it did. And that's why we end up with this result here. Now we're going to be doing a copying type of situation here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and explain what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to copy these over to this. Now you can see that when you do, you just go over here. Wait a minute, that didn't work. Let's delete that out. How about if we just copy it down this way first? And when you do, we're going to have to double click and we can see that we need to, comfort's okay. That's all right. You can see the word comfort's okay. What we need to update here is the criteria. Now the criteria, the next two lines would be a 4 and 5. This is a 7, 8, 10, 11, and 13, 14. So we're going to go back and update those. So again, this one here, you would have to backspace, make it a 4. And this one, you got to backspace, make it a 5. And the next one down, the next two grouping of criteria, it's in the location of 7 and 8. And then I'm going to work on this one, double click, and I'm going to backspace this out. And these two were 10. And this one here is 11. And then lastly, the last two ranges are 13. And this one is 14. So, whoops, that's 14. Okay, now I have all this correct. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to highlight. I'm going to convert my mouse pointer to the fill handle and I'm going to drag it over. Now, I know it copies it over, but at least our ranges are correct. Well, that didn't work either. So let me undo that last transaction. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to apply absolute cell referencing to everything. So if I apply it to all these numbers, and then you could just check mark it. So just go ahead and apply it to all these numbers, and I'll explain to you why. So for all these, check mark, and I'm sorry, you can fast forward through this if you like. Check mark that one, and then lastly this one. So we're applying absolute cell referencing on everything. Okay, now once we have absolute cell referencing and I pull it over, now it's going to work. The reason why, you can see it duplicated its data exactly. That's what I wanted. So now that when we go into fit, we have the correct range, but this word now must be fit. So I'm going to type FIT. And then I'm going to double click on top of it and I'm going to go to the keyboard, Control C, press enter, double click on this one, and I'm going to double click on that word and Control V. And you can see how it'll accept that change. I'm just going to use the check mark to accept the change. And I'm going to again double click, Control V. You can see now it's updated, check mark. And I'll do this one. It's just keyboard shortcuts help you speed up the process. And double click and Control V and press enter. Now I'm going to do the same thing with here, and this one should be, all these words here should be style and all these words should be values. So let me do that and pull. So I went ahead and made that change, and you could see whenever I click on any of these, the word style is updated or any of this is value. Now in this column, we're going to average out these numbers. So I'm just going to go up to the very first one. I'm going to go to, if you're on your formulas, it's under here, or if you're in your home tab, here's the auto sum button, but we want to select the average function. That is the correct range. So I'm going to check mark it, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy that down. If you're reading your set of instructions, we had to start with the satisfaction survey. We named our range, and then we went over to the criteria. We typed in our criteria, and then we went over to the average ratings, and we typed out that d-average function. And then lastly, that brought us all the way through our instructions up to number 11. And then number 12, it instructs us to average out these different rows, which we did here in this column G. Now, number 13 would take care of this column, but we're going to skip that because we do not have the ifs function available to us. So just skip that one. And then we're going to move on to number 14. Now, number 14, we need to go to the worksheet depreciation. And when we click on that, what we're going to do, that is, it just, depreciation, it decreases in the value of an asset as it ages. And we're going to use this, a function that will calculate the loss in value over a specific period of time at a fixed rate. So I'm going to go ahead and start typing it out, and then I'll pause it, and then I'll show you what to do. Okay, so we're going to click down here on C11, Let me zoom this up a little bit for you. So on C11, we're going to type equals DB for that database, or that function, I'm sorry. We double click. Now I'm going to go ahead and go up here to the f of x, and I'm going to open up that functions argument dialog box, and then I'm going to start filling in these fields. As you can see, I clicked on just C6 to self-populate. I made sure, and you can see that it's picking up the 175,000. Make sure that you're applying absolute self-referencing to the first three. And then lastly, the period, which is picking up the 1 year, B11, do not apply absolute self-referencing there. And you can see you have no errors. It has a value here. You select OK, it'll return it. And then all we're going to do is copy that down. Make sure you convert your mouse pointer. And then down here in this location, we're going to go use the sum function to add up all those numbers and just check mark it to accept the change. And that will take you all through number 14. Get our last worksheet. Just over top of any of these worksheet names, you're going to right click and select unhide. And then we want to unhide this worksheet email and select OK. Now here it is. We're going to use a function to take this string Vincent, the last name, and then we're going to attach an email address. So you can go ahead and link things together using this function. Now we can't use the one as specified in the instructions because we don't have the newer versions. So we're going to start typing out. Okay, so let me go ahead and repeat that. So we're going to right click over top of a worksheet. We're going to select unhide, and we're going to unhide this email. Now that we're in here, we're going to use a function. It will take these two strings of text and join it together within an email address using a function. Now the one we have to use is not available, the CONCAT. We need to use this one, sorry, I'm Russian, concatenate. I only have a couple more minutes before this video will cut off. Okay, so you just type it out, get the function up and running, click on the first string, comma, the second string, comma, and then this is the actual text that we want to attach to it. So make sure it's in quotation marks, and it's weshoes.org, and then end quotation marks. And if you press enter, you can see how it combines it. And then just go ahead and change your mouse pointer and drag it down and copy those down. That should be everything in this project. Make sure you save it and upload it for grading. And just remember to go to the feedback area to evaluate any of your errors.